just checked. Because I shared it a little timeline that what we've been doing and the numbers of kids as of 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay, I'm just going to pop in here before we get started so that everybody has a chance to do a sound check. Make sure that you can hear me talking. This will be recorded. So all of you are muted at this time. I ask that everyone down below in the chat, can you please say hello with your first and last name? We'd like to know who's joining us. So if you can say hello in the chat and then your first and last name. Again, doing a sound check, please make sure everyone is muted. As people are hopping on, please make sure that you can hear me, that your sound is okay. In the chat, we're asking everyone, please say hello with your first and last name so that we know who has attended one of the parent town hall presentations. Again, this is for 6th through 8th grade. So if you have a high school or a K-5 student, this is not that presentation. So this is just for 6th through 8th grade parents. Again, say hello in the comments with your first and last name. Hello, so we just want to make sure everyone is getting connected, that everyone has audio and that you can hear me okay. Again, just say hello in the comments with your first and last name. That will be super helpful for us so that we can see who's attending the presentation tonight. We'll get started at 6:30. Hello, I just wanted to pop on, make sure everyone can hear us okay. We're going to start at 6:30, so just do a quick audio check to make sure that everyone is actually muted as you come into the presentation. Right now, we would just like everyone to say hello in the chat, and please put your first and last name. If you will please put your first and last name, the chat is usually at the bottom. Hello to everyone that's just joining us. We're going to start here in the next 1 to 2 minutes. Please do a sound check. Everyone should be muted as you come on, but make sure that you can hear me. And say hello in the comments below with your first and last name, so we know who has joined us tonight for the presentation. Again, we'll get started here in about a minute and a half. Okay, hello everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started with our CPU Virtual Online Learning presentation. This is the parent town hall meeting for grades 6th through 8th grade. This will be for Edmentum using courseware. If you're just joining us, I wanted to make sure to do a sound check for everyone that's just hopping on. We would like you to say hello with your first and last name in the comments, so we know who is attending with us tonight. I'm Jennifer Burkhart, the Director of Instructional Services, Curriculum, Special Education, and Communications at Centerpoint Urbana. I am working with the administrative team as well as Mr. Winterhoff to start our virtual learning online for students and families in our district that have made the choice to do online learning. I'm here with Mr. Winterhoff, so I'm actually going to let him introduce himself.
Hello, I am the former middle school principal. Last year I spent in retirement and had this opportunity, and I will be working mainly from my home 8 to 10 daily. But at the beginning of this venture, I will be on most of the time. So if you have any questions or need anything, we can get things taken care of right away. And the email that I will be using is cpuonline@cpuschools.org. So that's how you can reach me. And I will be working with the teachers that'll be working with you, and then also making sure we keep moving along and are organized with this the best that we can.
Yes, so if you haven't already, please write down this email, cpuonline@cpuschools.org. This will be how you will communicate with Mr. Winterhoff if you have questions, technical difficulties. that will be the main email that parents will be able to use. So our agenda tonight, some of you have joined us on the previous K-5. Some of the items are similar, but the programs are completely different programs. So we want to make sure that we are very specific to each program. So we just did our introductions. We're going to go through expectations and guidelines. What is the virtual teacher role and what is the parent and family role? What is courseware, which is the program that our 6th through 8th grade students will use at home? Family resources that will be available to you. A look into what Edmentum courseware looks like. And then we will also have the opportunity for a parent question answer that is live at the end. And we may be able to answer some of the questions that we've already had in our previous sessions.
We'll be using the chat.
Yes. So in the presentation, we are expected to have many people. So like I said previously, everyone will be muted. We did this so that we can get through the information that we have provided, but throughout our presentation, please feel free to use the chat box to write your questions to us that we will answer at the end of the presentation. We do ask that you not post any conversations back and forth with each other so that we are able to quickly find the questions at the end of the presentation to be super respectful of everybody's time. So please limit the conversation to none in the chat box, but do put your questions there that you have throughout the presentation so you don't forget them. The questions and answers will be held at the end of the presentation. This presentation will be recorded and we will also post it on the CPU webpage on the Return to Learn, and I will show you where that webpage is at the end of the presentation. So first we want to talk about CPU online virtual teachers. Our goal in the district is that we have at least one teacher per building that is going to be assigned and designated a CPU online virtual teacher. And in some buildings, it may be more than one teacher, and that goes based on the numbers of our enrollment survey of the number of students that are going online. For 6th through 8th grade, Libby Ridgway will be the CPU virtual online teacher. Again, the teachers are not established yet, and the details are not confirmed for all the teachers, but we do know Libby Ridgway will be the virtual online teacher. Her hours will be from 8 o'clock to 10:30 daily, where she will have an office time that you will be able to reach out to her. And we did also list her email address, lridgway@cpuschools.org. We want to be able to go through expectations and guidelines for what online instruction is going to look like and how we're going to get started with the school year. So right now, we have been granted access to the 6-8 courseware, but we have not been able to get into the K-5 Calvert Learning software yet. Because of this, we are going to be staggering the start date from August 24th to August 31st for students and families that will be starting online in CPU virtual. So our hope is that most of 6th through 8th grade will be ready to go August 24th. Again, we're allowing this time frame between August 24th and the 31st to ensure that we get materials to parents, devices to parents, and all of those things. The first thing that we wanted to share with expectations and guidelines is that the learning that you will do in CPU virtual online is required learning. So unlike in the spring when it was voluntary for the district, this learning will be new learning, not just review, and it will be required learning. We want parents to know that right up front, that the learning will be required. So just so you have an idea, we have shared with all the parent presentations about expectations for all 4 buildings so that you can see how we are staggering these things and how it is different for the developmental level for each of our buildings. So preschool will not use the online curriculum. That will be created by the preschool teachers. And if you have a preschooler, that will actually be shared with you, and you will make a connection with the preschool teacher next week. Primary and intermediate, we have had both parent presentations, and Edmentum Calvert Learning will be used for primary and intermediate students that are choosing to go online. Our middle school students, which is for the students for all of you, Edmentum has been purchased, and the program is called Courseware for 6th through 8th grade. If you have a child also in the high school CPU virtual online learning will be with Apex, and a communication was sent last week to the student school email from the counselor so that she can get the students registered in Apex. So at the primary and the intermediate, the online learning instructional time, the research shows that 1.5 to 2 hours is appropriate for that age of students. We will be requiring English language arts and reading, which is one part of the program. We will also require math. And we talked about how electives will be optional. So for example, at the middle school, online learning instructional time that is appropriate is 2 to 3 hours of online learning. Required at the middle school, we will require English language arts and reading, math, and we will do alternate days of science and social studies. Electives will also be optional. So for example, when you're going to be planning what your online instructional time will look like for your middle schooler, you can expect to have 2 to 3 hours online. Maybe you have a 60-minute English language arts lesson that your child will do, but your child may also have outside activities or learning that will take place offline as well. So although the instructional time is 2 to 3 hours, you may have activities and learning that will happen outside of instructional time or screen time. So actually, I want to go back here. So at this time, there are electives, and what we have chosen to do, and Mr. Winterhoff will talk about this when he presents, right now, we will offer, you will see your required materials in there, and then in about 2 weeks or so, we are going to open up like the electives or projects, and Mr. Winterhoff will talk to you about what that will look like. We want everyone to be able to get started in what is required before you start moving to things that are electives or optional. Now, several of you may fall into a category where we are going to be meeting with you individually on a case-by-case basis. So several of you may have a student with an IEP, and that online learning for your child will look differently or will be the decision of the IEP team. So together, we're going to look at what that looks like for your child and make adjustments as well. Students with 504 plans, you can expect someone to be reaching out to you to ensure that you have what you need and that your child's needs are being met. Students that are in talented and gifted, in the next 2 weeks, we will be providing opportunities where we will meet on a case-by-case basis with students who are in tag enrichment, and that will be the decision of the tag teacher, student family, and what we call the CPU team. So once you are in your required courses, you may also take advantage of the tag enrichment that can be offered to your child based on what the team decides. Accessible materials. It's extremely important that Center Point Urbana feels that we want to make sure that we are supporting our online virtual families in providing you technology devices if needed. So on Monday, Mr. Winterhoff sent a Google survey to anyone that was interested in enrolling in CPU Online Virtual. In the Google survey, you were asked, Do you need a device or devices if you have more than one child at home? Do you need a technology device? And do you have internet in the home? Our goal is that if you do not have internet, we also plan to provide a hotspot so that parents have access to internet in their home. Another thing that we would like to do is we are going to be printing online learning materials. So we understand that materials are available online. Everything that you need is inside the program. However, we may also be printing packets so that each family has access to the printed materials. So the assumption is not made that you have a printer at home and you can print worksheets, pacing guides, or resources that you might need as a family. And this, we are working very carefully and diligently in working on our device pickup and when that will be scheduled, as also in terms of material pickup. So we will get an important date out to you, and that will come from Mr. Winterhoff, again, to all parents. Okay, so one of the things that we wanted to make sure on our agenda that we covered is what is the role of the virtual teacher, parent, student, and school administrator. Our virtual teacher, you can see this particular chart, and I'm going to go through each of these individually. So if you can't see the chart, I'm actually just going to click to the next page. So the role of the CPU virtual online learning teacher is to monitor and communicate with parents and students about progress on a consistent schedule. The CPU teacher online learning will be the main person responsible for communicating with families on behalf of the district and the school. So we are going to ask that once you are assigned your CPU virtual online teacher, the communication will flow through that teacher first. If you have questions or you have concerns that you feel maybe you need answered more immediately or that you don't feel were resolved, then you also have access to Mr. Winterhoff, who will be available from 8 to 10 every day, and you can contact him as well. CPU virtual online learning for each student will be set aside for you inside the courseware learning. So our online coordinator, so Mr. Winterhoff, is going to be creating those units and your required programs inside courseware for you. And all of that information he's going to talk about when you will get username, logins, and be able to get in and look. The CPU virtual online teacher does not provide live lessons. This is important for you to understand. Our teacher is not here to be the teacher and do the live lessons. When you are making the decision to go CPU virtual online, the parent is the teacher. So you will be the day-to-day teacher for your child. We are simply providing the program and the curriculum for you. CPU virtual online teacher will correct some of the mastery assessments, and Mr. Winterhoff is going to talk about what that looks like, because there are certain things within the program that will be locked and unlocked that have to do with assessments. And so he's going to share with you what that's going to look like. Okay, so the role of the parent, important for you to understand that when you enroll in CPU virtual online learning, you will serve as the primary day-to-day teacher for your child or your children. You will be providing your child or children's direct instruction using Edmentum courseware for 6th through 8th grade. Now, inside these lessons, there are getting started lessons, there is a video lesson, and that program will go through everything for your child. But you will be the person that your child will be asking questions to, or I don't understand, before you reach out to your virtual teacher. You will be responsible for creating a regular routine for your child or children and set clear expectations for learning in the home. And we will reiterate that many times probably tonight, about having a regular routine. I know Mr. Winterhoff sent out some sample schedules, so if you did not get what sample schedules might look like, he will send those again to you, and you can put that in the chat.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know in the chat if you didn't receive that email. You will review your child or children's work and provide feedback to your child. For the work that is submitted in the program grades the work for you. And we will show you a little bit of like what that looks like inside the program. You will also then serve as the proctor for when your child takes an assessment. And again, Mr. Winterhoff's going to go through what that looks like. So anytime a child is given an assessment, that is a time that we want to know what the child has learned. And so we're going to talk about how it's not really, we don't want children to just get it done. We want them to actually learn the material. And you need to understand when I'm the teacher and when I become the proctor of the assessment. Again, you will have access to the CPU virtual online teacher, and at the middle school, that will be Mrs. Ridgway. You can ask her questions regarding curriculum that may arise, or if you are having something that you are struggling with during the school day, she will hold office hours from 8 to 10:30. And Mr. Winterhoff's also going to talk about how there's communication tools that are actually set up inside the program. So he's going to share with you what that will look like as well. Okay, I am actually going to let Mr. Winterhoff take over and talk about lunch.
Hopefully, about Tuesday, I do believe, yesterday, Christy Bruce sent out an email concerning lunches, because all of you will have access to school lunches if you would wish to get those. And it would just be like a regular lunch, and they would be, you would pay for them. Free and reduced lunch would apply. And she wants information if you're interested in that, so they know how many to fix and where pickup would be and all that sort of thing. So make sure if you did not get that, contact me. I'll let her know, and we can go from there. So that is an option that you have also. A couple other things before we get started with the next part. One thing to remember about a program like this is probably all of your kids have been on something like this, whether it's Khan Academy or Dreambox or different things like that. So, probably when they get on and they start looking at the tools that are there, they can do, text to speech and use a calculator online and all that sort of stuff. They're used to doing things like that. It probably is the adults that maybe it will be a little bit different for. And also this program, if you had any kids in the K-5 portion, it's a little bit different in that parents, you will not get access to the program. It will only go to the child, to one person, the student. You will have access, though, to something kind of like Power Schools, where it will tell you how they're doing and such. And we'll explain how that will work. That will probably not be set up till the middle of next week after we get going for a few days. There's a few more steps in getting that going. You heard maybe we did not have access to the K-5. We're sitting pretty good with 6-8. So, I've been in, we're all set up, and we're going to get emails out here shortly, and we'll go through that too here in just a few minutes. So course setup, what will the course look like? And remember, science, social studies, math, and English language arts will be the required portion, just like would be when you're in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. There will be a pretest. Then there will be a discussion question. That discussion question has to be graded by the CPU virtual online teacher. So most of those are hidden or locked, because it's going to be impossible for 50 students to all communicate with Mrs. Ridgway, and that's who all the students would be Mrs. Ridgway, and then have her grade it, because she has to grade them too. Now, if you think that some of those discussions might look interesting, we can unlock them and hide them for you, and you can do them, but they will not be graded, okay? Then there will be a lesson followed by a mastery test. So it's kind of like they do a lesson, and when they say a lesson, there's probably many parts to it. Some maybe 2 or 3, some up to 9 or 10. So it won't just take one day. So a whole lesson, depending on the content, because I looked at social studies and it was like their lessons were much smaller, but then math, it was like they had 4 in a unit and it was going to take a whole month. So there will be lessons, so don't think they have to be all done in one day, and followed by a mastery test, which is kind of like a quiz, just to see how they're doing on that. And some of those are graded by the computer, and there's some parts that might have to be graded by Mrs. Ridgway. So we'll see how that kind of goes. And there will be so many of those, and then towards the end of the chapter, there's an activity, and some of those are hidden. I am going through all of them, and the ones that are good and manageable and doesn't require you to go out and buy, a whole new cupboard so you can cook something later on. If they're manageable and good, I've left them in there. If not, I have hidden them. Of course, if you look and think that you might want to do them, I can unhide them and you can decide that we will not be grading those. We'll only grade the ones that are not hidden. And then at the end, there's a post-test, and the post-test will be locked until the student has proven that everything is done before that, and then it will be unlocked. I've been around middle schoolers a lot, and I know that all of you cannot be there every single second, and we don't want somebody skipping to the test without really doing well on the other things that they have to do beforehand. All right, so that's how everything is set up. So the courses we have: language arts, math, social studies, and science, and they are required. We will put some other courses on there that you can use if you wish to. We did not get access to those yet, but they should be coming to us. And it would be something like, health, career exploration, those sorts of things that would be added. And then you can do those. Of course, you can always put in your schedule at home. If you want to have free reading time, your student's really into art, they want to work on a portrait or something, you can always add those into your schedules. The schedules that I sent out are for you just to get a start. You change those, what works for you and your family. I do want to mention, though, that you don't want to work, 10 hours one day or 8 hours one day, so then you can skip Monday. You don't want to do that. It's important to get in a daily schedule. They're going to encourage 5 out of 7 days. Okay. Now, if it doesn't work out and you miss a day, no one's going to say anything, but try to do a schedule the same way every day. Do it for a week. Then if you need to tweak something, go ahead and tweak it and change it for the next week. When you set those schedules, it's good to also have the students involved. So it said recommended 2 to 3 hours. Now, of course, it says for the school day, probably 4 to 5. And that includes, break time. That includes free reading time. That includes lunch, all those things. So when you think of your day, put all that together, use what I gave you as a starting block, and then come up with your schedule. Hey, the dashboard. So I have been in quite often into Edmanim courseware. This is how it looks today. It will not be activated until August 24th for the students. So if you get in earlier than that, this is all you're going to see. There's nothing in there. Okay. So there will be courses. There will be something that will show, hey, this is how far you are in math right now, and this is where you should be. How are you doing? Now, if you're a little bit behind, no one's going to say anything. If you're a little bit ahead, no one's going to say anything. Okay. If you're like 2 weeks behind, then, Mrs. Ridgway will probably contact you and say, do we need help, revamping the schedule? Is there something else do we need to have a longer time in there for that subject area? Do we need to do it twice a day? Something like that.
If they're like 2 to 3 days and not online, they will likely get.
And it also shows when you're online and not, so it does take attendance. So for instance, if you're online Monday, but not for the rest of the week, Mrs. Ridgway will be giving you contacting you and so forth. You also see on this page, you see the envelope up there. So that is the communication tool through this dashboard. So very quick, Mrs. Ridgway, if she sends something, it will show up there. And if you send something or the student sends something out, it will come from there also. Okay, and we're going to encourage students to at least contact Mrs. Ridgway once a week. And she's going to be contacting them, and she's going to try to copy anything she says to the student and also then send it to your email also, so you know that's been occurring. Okay, and the activities, they look like this. This is one that I thought looked great today when I was reading through there, and then the activities they do with it afterwards. Some of them will probably take 2 to 3 days to do. Some may be only 1 or 2, and others might take 5, 6, 7, 8 days to do, depending on what they are. The assessments kind of look like this. I did not do the top part at the top. It will have a toolbar, which we'll look at in a second, which actually the assessment toolbar and the regular assignment toolbars do look a little different, but every single thing on here, they can do text to speech. So if a student wants to click on there and have it read every single thing to them or have it reread it to them, they can do that. Okay, so make sure if a student's like rushing, you might want to make sure that maybe they need to listen to it read to them twice or whatever would work out for you. And on this assessment, I think there were 14 questions, and this is a post assessment. And also at the top, then there's a spot for dictionary, I do believe, maybe a calculator and other tools that they would use during the assessment. Okay. Again, when you are the proctor for an assessment, these can all be retaken. The idea is we want students to learn, not just to get it done, not just to have their parents tell them what the answer is, okay, or a brother or sister. So make sure that when you're proctoring, be in close proximity. Doesn't mean you have to be right next to them. Also know if they're, need notes or anything, or, any other things they might need that they can use. Of course they can. If they're not supposed to, they don't. And if they're having trouble with something, you can always, give them a suggestion. Maybe you skip this one and come back to it later because you're frustrated. Or you can say something like, hey, remember, this was in that video we watched the other day when we were first starting to study George Washington or something like that. So, you can give hints, but don't get close to the answer because we want to know what the student knows. Because if they don't know, then they're going to need to go back and redo some things. Now, when the students take those assessments, whether they're the mastery ones or the post, the mastery ones at the end, they might give some hints on some things they need to go back and practice. So make sure you take a look at that so you can go back and tell them, hey, it says in here that you need to practice reducing fractions. So here's some more practice that they have right here on reducing fractions. So we need to do that before we move on to our next part. The mastery assessments, I do believe, they cannot retake. Now remember, I just started in this program with training on Saturday, so I'm not like a total expert yet, and I probably won't be throughout the whole year. But if you think they need to retake or you have questions, that's when you email Mrs. Ridgway, myself, because she will have access to retake and redo tests also, or to unblock things. So always contact her first and then come to me. Now, the first few days you're getting in, if there's a question about passwords, usernames, technology, come straight to me so I can get working on that right away. Okay, so don't be afraid to do that. That's what I'm here to help you with. Here's the activity tools, and a lot of students know how to use these already, but when you do the lessons, and this is what's available. So table of contents, there's other resources, they might want to use a note page, and there's those there. There's a glossary, short summaries of key material for you. There's a dictionary. The reading tools, a lot of kids I know like to use the, text to speech tool. Hopefully, well, I don't know if we need translations, but that's there. Calculator, any other math tools, and a highlighter. Okay. And the first lessons for each of the courses that students will do is they will do an introductory courses. And I think there's 2 of them. One's called an orientation. And then the next one has another name that I'm not quite familiar with, but those will go through what's expected in the course, kind of like the first day of school for everyone that's going to be here. what's expected, how does the website work, how do different things work, and then go through, you know, all these things that are available to them, like the table of contents, resources. And I would encourage parents, you know, if you want to know how to use these at a higher level, you know, you can go through right with them also on those first few days. So process to get started. So we are ready to start sending out emails to parents and students so they're ready to go online. I have to do that each one individually, so it's going to take some time. I just don't press a button and they all send out to people. So I want to start that tomorrow. So some of you will start to get that information tomorrow, some on Friday, some Saturday, probably even some Sunday. You will have 3 things you have to enter in order to get into the site. Now, I will send the email to parents and to the student email. Okay, so all of you will get that. There's an account, and the account for everybody is the same, CPU, CSD. That stands for Community School District. I had to be told that, and helps me remember that. So CPU, CSD, and then you will have a username and password. Okay, you will also get a letter along with this email that will say, you know, how to log in and some other little hints on how you can use the site. Now, remember, the site does not become active until the 24th. So it will look pretty bare until the 24th on that day. So the reason we're allowing people to start anytime between the 24th and the 31st is if you have an elementary child and they're not ready to go yet, you can decide if is it okay if the middle school child starts and the 3rd grader has to wait, or is that going to make one math? You can decide that, but plan on getting started the 24th or early or to the 31st. But the 24th, we will have all the information out to you by that time. So the other thing that will be coming out to you is how parents can follow along with the process or progress of their student. Like I said, that will come out sometime next week, but this is how it's going to work. I will send you an email. So my emails are organized: middle school, intermediate, primary, and then everybody. So I will send one just to the middle school, and it's very odd how they do this, but they give you a time limit on when you can use that email to log in. So you will get that information, you'll be able to log in, and he said it's only like 2 or 3 hours. So if you don't get to it, I can send it out again. So please let me know that. And that's just for 6th through 8th grade students. That's how that works for the parent following along. Hey, expectations for online students. So I know there's some students on here also. This is about you too. You're the one that's going to have to do it. So they suggest doing 5 out of 7 days. Make it like a regular scheduled thing. I would, get up just like you would if you're going to leave the house. Get up, take a shower, get cleaned up, do whatever your morning routine is, get dressed, eat breakfast, get ready to go. You guys decide if you're starting at 8:30, 9:30, that's up to you. And we're not going to be checking like, oh, you only did 4 out of 7 days this week. We're knowing there's some reason for that, and you guys chose that, and that's perfectly fine. Attendance is recorded. So there will be attendance that we will see when they're on and how long they're on. So for instance, if a student is on for 4 minutes, it will say average daily usage 4 minutes. Okay, Mrs. Ridgway will probably be giving you an email. Okay, work completion in a timely manner. You will see a daily schedule and you will see a pacing guide. It will say, this is where you should be on day 1, day 2, day 3. If you work a little bit ahead, that's fine. You don't have to stay there, okay? But you don't want to work too far ahead and do a whole bunch of work in one day and then be exhausted. You want to make learning, so we want to keep learning. It's about learning, not just getting things done. If a student falls behind too much, we'll probably meet. If we need to meet in a bigger group or live, we can do that, just to make sure that we're on the right path. And these are semester courses, so we have it staggered that we will end on January 14th. So they have spread out the assignments through that first semester to be completed. And the courses that we are doing are first semester of science, first semester of language arts. And I have been working with the middle school teachers to make sure we're as close as possible to doing the same topics and standards. It might not be the same stories, the same videos and all that sort of stuff, but we're trying to be as close as we can to what they are doing. Because, come back in January, or next year, however it works out, we want to make sure that you're right where you need to be. Okay, weekly communications. We're going to encourage every student to communicate with Mrs. Ridgway at least once a week. It can be through the system. It can be an email, call. You probably won't do much calling. And she will be giving you feedback, which she will try to copy also and give to you. Sometimes it might just be, hey, good job. I see that you completed the first mastery assessment and you did an awesome job. Okay, that might be it. Sometimes it might be, hey, it looks like you're behind a little bit in social studies. Is there anything I can do to help you get caught up or to stay on pace? Okay, it doesn't always have to be something totally, about what they're learning. Or it might be. She might say, hey, I see you did this portion about our community. What did you decide to do in that project? And we can go from there. Okay, set personal goals, always a good thing to do. Write them down and keep them visible throughout the day. So you might want a weekly goal that they're going to get through the first lesson, and in math, they're going to get an 80% or above on the mastery assessment. A great goal. Maybe it's something to do with PE that they want to do in their free time, and maybe they're going to do some app that they found that they're going to do a 10-minute workout every day. Okay, that can be their goal too. Maybe they're going to help you cook one meal throughout the day. Wouldn't that be nice? Spend at least 4 hours a day, and that doesn't mean that's all online. Remember, it was 2 to 3 online, and that includes, I would probably say it's closer to 5, 8th grade and up, or 7th, 8th. You get kind of see how it works out. But remember, that includes lunch, that includes free reading time, all those things. So don't think it has to be, gosh, if I don't get to 4 hours online, that I won't be able to do this. Some kids, it might be 4 hours. Spread it out so they don't get too tired of it. Some it might be 2.5, 3 hours. It just depends. Establish a routine. If the teacher does give feedback, Mrs. Ridgway or myself, on something that they're working on, make sure you use that for next time. So for instance, if she says, it looks to me like you're rushing through, maybe have your parent or the online text reader read this to you before you hit enter, just to make sure that you understood everything correctly. Okay, it might be something like that. Okay, for family success, yes, use that routine. Involve your student in the process of developing that routine. Build in study breaks and opportunities for movement. Set aside a specific spot for schooling. Some of you have multiple kids involved, and you can't all be around the kitchen table because they're going to be doing different things and they will interrupt each other. You decide what that's going to be. If they're the only person working, it's better to be out in the open so it's easy for you to check on them and so forth. When you are testing, remember, you are the proctor, so give them some hints if they need them. Make sure it's quiet. Give them other hints like use the text reader, skip that one, come back to it, and so forth. We want to know what the kids know, not just to get done, and then they can retake if they need to. You can always review some lessons, either if they need to, just because you think they missed something, or in advance for a test. And allow time for reflection. Just think for a few minutes in some evening, how's it going? Wait a week, then change things. Don't just change things every day because you don't think things are working. Make sure that, you give it some time. And again, communication, it should flow from the online teacher, from Mrs. Ridgway first, and then to me. In the first week or so, when you're getting online and with technology, like I said before, please contact me directly so I can get, passwords reset, talk with you about, or you might have to call, about getting online and if your technology is working correctly or there are issues and so forth. If you do have a question that you've been trying to get from Mrs. Ridgway and it doesn't work out, then get to me. And if I need to go to the principal, we'll try to do that. And the classroom teachers, which probably doesn't apply as much to 6th through 8th grade, but the secretary, they're going to keep you on the email list so you will keep up with things. And I will try to send out, those Friday folders and anything else that we might need to keep you connected to CPU because you are still one of our students and we want to make sure that we maintain that the best that we can. Now, we've already been through some of these and we have some great questions and we want to make sure we share those with you because it does apply to the 6th through 8th grade students also. So can we get band and choir schedules for 5th through 8th grade? I'm in the process of getting those. I will email them out to all of you and we'll also put it on that website that Jennifer will share at the end that's at the CPU website. So we will get those taken care of so you know. And we'll get it done in the next couple of days so you have it for Monday. Can we get information about 7th and 8th grade sports? Yes, I will email those out to you the same way. And then we'll also put those on the school website also. If any book orders, we'll try to get you the best that we can. I don't know how many 6th, 7th, and 8th graders actually do that. And can we use the CPU libraries? It's really up to you. It's not a requirement. If you want your kids going into the school, you decide that. I will schedule, I'm getting schedules from the principals of when the libraries are open. And then you will know that and you can come on in and check out books if you wish to. Okay? Of course, you always have the public library and kids can read things at home or, some of them like to do that online. You guys can decide how that works best for everyone involved. All right? So we're going to go to question and answer. So if you want to, any questions, get into the chat. And if you did not fill out the survey, I sent it out again today at 4, but I need that done because we're going to organize getting information out about the computers if you need those or the hotspots. So the plan is I will send out information tomorrow and you're going to get a lot of emails from me in the next few weeks or the next few days here. I will try to send one piece of information in each email with the title on top so you can find them easily. And that first one I sent out was pretty lengthy. So we'll try to make sure that happens. But our plan is on Friday, I will set up a time where you can go to the district office and get all of the technology that you need. Okay? If that time does not work, please email me and I'll set up something else to meet you somewhere and get that taken care of. So make sure you follow along with my emails and we'll get going here the best we can. And we hope everybody has a great year. And remember, this is different for everybody, but I think for our students, they've been used to doing things like this before. The difference is this is required and they're not at school with that teacher that knows that subject, better. And not that some of you probably don't, but many of you maybe aren't as good at math as reading and so forth or language. So that's going to kind of be a difference for them. But I know our students can do this. They're just going to have to use some of their resources to make sure it's successful for them. All right, so we have some questions.
Okay, I'm going to come into the chat.
Do you want me to start with the first one about the high school, the algebra class?
Sure, if you'd like to.
Yes. So there's a question about the people that are taking the 8th grade algebra class with Mrs. Height Susan. I have talked with her and have, what she's going to be working on through the first semester. And so we're going to try to be as close as we can to that. And I will talk to those people that sign up for that class individually. I'll give you a call over the next few days so we can kind of work on that and get that set up for you. But it will be as close to that as possible, and you will still get high school credit. And I don't know, so will you have access to that high school algebra class on August 31st as well? That will be set up earlier than that, and we'll be starting, we should be ready on the 24th, just like the other classes. And when we say it's the high school algebra, it's Mrs. Height Susan, what she teaches for algebra in 8th grade is what we will be doing. Okay, and the next one, you can work ahead a little bit, but don't just work ahead to work ahead. You want to make sure that you're keeping your schedule. Don't work ahead in math and then fall behind in language arts. So kind of keep with your plan, but the first few days that you're working, you'll probably figure out, oh, I didn't do enough today, or man, this was way too much, and back off. All that is fine. So you and students and parents, work together to make that schedule and what you're doing work for you.
Yes. So yes, you can work ahead in the lessons. Next question. Making sure I understand. ELA, math, science, and social studies are required. Yes, that is correct. So you will have ELA in reading. You will have math required. And then the expectation will be that you alternate science and social studies. So both will be required.
And the lunch, I think there's information in the letter. So about lunch, I think there's information in the email that she sent out. And if you didn't get that, email me and I will get that to her, to Christy Bruce. I don't know about the pickup. I think they're still organizing that. It probably depends where they make them. And we'll go from there. So make sure you read through her email.
Yes. So lunch, where is lunch pickup going to be? We will let you know and we will send that information, or Christy already said that in the email. So if you did not get an email regarding lunch from Christy Bruce that indicates where pickup will be, please let me know in the chat here and I'll make sure to find out an answer for you. Can both of my kids have the same virtual teacher?
Yep.
Are both of your kids in the same building?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Everybody in the middle school has Mrs.
Everyone
Ridgway.
in the middle school will have Mrs. Ridgway. Can discussions and activities be unlocked per student? Yes. Once you have been enrolled in CPU Virtual and you are set up as a CPU virtual student, you can contact Mr. Winterhoff or Mrs. Ridgway and they can unlock discussions, projects, activities on a per student level because those are not required. Again, I just want to reiterate too, with some of these questions, you need to be enrolled as a CPU virtual online student. Do parents have access to a teacher's manual with keys and answers? Yes.
No.
Sorry.
This is not like the kindergarten through 5th grade where you do have that teacher's edition with you. Whenever a student does something, it's going to tell them the answer afterwards. So it will check everything for them. And that's kind of, when they get to 6th and 8th grade, it's 6th or 8th grade, it's kind of that expectation that that's how that will work. Now, like I said, I'm not an expert on it. On this yet, or maybe never, but I don't think there's anything like that available to you. If I find it, I would pass that on, but the students are given the answers, so they see the corrections when they do their assessments and when they do any other work that they have to do online throughout the program.
And I know that there will be teaching notes for the parents. So there are teaching notes for you that I think that you can access. Okay, the next question. For school supplies, is there a different list of materials versus the class learning list? So you will have to look on each lesson where Mr. Winterhoff kind of said, look ahead in the lessons. All of the materials, like all the online things that they will need will be online. But if there is an extra activity or a project, those are things that are unlocked per student, and that may require materials that you would have to look at ahead of time. But
yeah, I really think if you have some paper, pencil, pen, those sorts of things, that will be an eraser. Because you might, if they like to write things down, because there are places where like you can write a story and then take a picture of it and send it through there. You don't have to just type it on the computer and so forth. And there are things you know, like with the projects, they might say you can make a poster. So those are all kind of optional, but I think most of the things are right there. Like for math, there's a calculator. Now they also might want to have their own. I mean, that's fine. And you know, there's other tools that they need, like a ruler and all those sorts of things that are online. So you don't need everything that's on the list for CPU on there. You don't need all that. You would probably, the main things would be paper, pencil, you know, that sort of thing right beside you. I think that would do it.
Okay, the next question. Will science be the version with labs?
It's a version without labs. So if you've looked ahead into what's offered, there's a science with labs and science without labs. We're doing the science without labs, but when you look inside of it, there's still some things to do, which I would consider kind of lab-like. So that's the one that we chose to do.
Will it be available if they would choose to unlock it, like for extras?
It's a whole different course.
Oh.
I mean, it would have to be entered as a whole different course, but we could do that, but we would not be grading it or anything like that. So that is available if we would need to do that.
And we also would not supply like the lab materials, since this is a responsibility of the parent.
Yeah, and some of the things, some of the activities that I saw, you know, there's some things that you need, and I'm thinking, okay, as a parent, if we're doing this, I'm working, you don't need to be going out and trying to find, you know, these 10 supplies to make this thing that they're supposed to cook for a project. That just doesn't make sense. And maybe that was a 5th grade that I saw, that it was like, okay, you know, we want to make it as easy for you as possible. So if you would like those unlocked or like to do that, or I can add it as an extra thing and you can choose to do it, that is perfectly fine.
And that will be done on a student by student basis. So you'll have to get a hold of Mr. Winterhoff. Can students move on to the next lesson if they're waiting for a mastery assessment to be graded?
Yes.
Yes, you can move on to a next lesson. You may need to come back to something based on how the student scored on the mastery assessment. Will pre-test be enabled in all subjects? Yes, there are pre-tests available. And I think for some students even that, is this the one that will adaptive? So like if they master it, then they don't have to do a certain lesson?
It might.
Yes. So, so I think we've actually been in both. Yeah, we don't know the answer to this question, so we're going to have to get back to you. But I do think in one of the programs, and now I can't remember which one it is, the pre-tests are enabled. And if a student masters a specific skill, then it's possible that a lesson would be turned off because the student has already mastered the skill. So I need to double check to make sure that that's the correct answer. What are the elective options that we'll be able to consider in the next 2 weeks? So we have been given what's called an elective library, but to my knowledge today, the elective library has not been opened for us yet. So as soon as we know, once we get into the elective options, what they are, we will make sure to share that link of what the library looks like to parents that are interested. Will kids continue with AR?
No.
No, the students will not be involved in AR at the middle school. Will Algebra 1 be through Edmentum or through the high school program?
For those students in 8th grade, it will be through Edmentum, and it will be set up similar to what Mrs. Heitsusen does for the 8th grade Algebra 1 class at the middle school. And students will still get high school credit for it, and it'll be very similar. And I am working, she's already shared with me all of her standards that she does in the first semester. So we're going to try to make sure we match it up as close as we can. And I think it is pretty close already. But I will talk to you individually. I will call those people that are in that class so we can discuss it individually and make sure we understand the plan for that.
Okay, the next question. Is there tutorials or videos for lessons? Yes. There are lots of videos in lessons. There's options for lessons to be read aloud. There are times where within a lesson, they will take you to like a Discovery Ed video to watch. So there is lots of video lessons that will take place to help enhance the learning for the student's lesson. I hope I'm answering that correctly.
Yes. And can you work ahead in the Algebra 1 class? It will just be like, the other classes. It will be set up and students will go through it.
And
we will have we're doing the first semester in this portion, and it will be it'll be self-paced, and so they can decide. Again, we encourage you, and the other thing, so there's a lot of questions about Algebra 1. I don't know how many people are having questions about this actually, but I will also tell you that, Mrs. Heitsusen always does like an introduction with some 8th grade math materials because the kids didn't take those, and then goes into the Algebra 1 material. So we're going to try to do the same thing. So it will be a pretty intense class. And what we will do to make sure that it's a semester class is, maybe some of the activities, we will take out a few more of those to make sure we can keep pace. So, and like I said, I will call all those signed up individually to talk about that. And if we get into a week or two and we need to talk again, we can always do that.
Okay, so anyone that falls into the 8th grade algebra, you are considered on a case-by-case basis. So Mr. Winterhoff will be reaching out to you probably individually. The next question says, can you speak more about how you recommend alternating science and social studies? Is this something that they can do one for half semester and complete it, then switch to the other, trying to make things as simple for the kids?
I don't think there's a problem with that. The reason we did that is because that's how the school is structured, so it's the same way. I don't think there's a problem with that, and to be honest, I think it would work. So you kind of decide how that would go. The other thing that you could do is if you want to do, 40 minutes of science and 40 minutes of social studies a day. The problem is with some of those, like I was looking at an activity today for 7th grade social studies, and it's like, I think if you're working on this, they're going to want to keep going and get like, a good chunk of this done in one day, instead of just doing a little bit and then not thinking about it and doing a little bit and taking like 8 days to do it when you can get done maybe 3. So you're just going to have to play with that, and you make the judgment, talk to the student and see what would work best for them. And you can always do it for a few weeks and then decide, I think we need to kind of alternate more and maybe do the next then few weeks of the other subject and then maybe do alternating days. You guys can decide what works.
The other thing with that is, like with Mr. Winterhoff saying, you may decide to do like science. Maybe you do 1 unit of science and then you move into like a unit of social studies. You kind of need to decide like how that would look. But again, the decision was made in terms of requiring that, because that is what is required, alternating science and social studies.
The next one is about like the elective courses and those sorts of things.
Let me read the question so they all know it, in case some of them aren't reading it. So the next question is, will foreign languages be available to students?
So when we share some of the electives that are available, we're going to choose the ones that are close to what we have in our school. We're going to make it as close to those as possible. So I know there's health and there's PE, and like I said, career, and those sorts of things. So we're going to make it, and there's something to do with computers. I don't know what the exact name of it is. So we're going to make it as close to what we offer here as possible.
Now, for some of the families that are on the presentation tonight, it may be possible that your child falls under the tag enrichment. And if that is something that is interesting to your child, then that would fall under the case-by-case basis. That will be a team decision. Is all this Algebra 1 talk for certain? Yes. So Algebra 1, no. Okay.
So all students in 8th grade will be taking 8th grade math.
Correct.
There are a few students that have qualified to take the Algebra 1 class taught by Mrs. Heitsusen through rubrics and past work and Iowa assessment scores if we've had them. And that's how they gotten into that portion. But all students will take the 8th grade math, and that will get them prepared to take Algebra 1 as a freshman, which is the traditional path that everyone most people take.
Correct. So the Algebra 1 discussion about 8th graders is for a small portion of people that qualify. Okay, so are there more questions coming in? Yep. And I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go to the CPU virtual. So if you go to the district homepage, my goal is that over here on the right side where it says latest news, I'm going to have the Return to Learn site as a quick link there. For right now, if you go to the district page up at the top menu that says the district, if you scroll to the left menu where it says Return to Learn, you will see the district's Return to Learn webpage. If you look at the left, you will see the menu, and on the menu there is a tab for a subpage that's called CPU Virtual Online Learning. And this is here so you can see our parent town hall presentations, the different parent orientations that are available for both programs. And then also on the left, there are subpages. So we're going to try and build the CPU page for the K-5 Calvert Learning. And you will have your own page. And then we're also going to have a 6th through 8th grade for courseware that will be here as well. So any communications, we'll get like emails on here, contact information, office hours, all of that will be located right here. Yes, and also tonight's presentation will be recorded, as well as the town hall presentation slides will be up, and you will be able to access those again here if you need to as well. So Mr. Winterhoff's going to check the chat box to see if there are more questions.
All right, thank you everybody for coming tonight. We're gonna have a great year doing this. Please contact me if you have questions, and also get ready to get some emails from me here over the next few days as we get started.
Yes, and thank you, the CPU administrative team and Mr. Winterhoff, the CPU virtual teachers when they're assigned. We just want to tell you all that we still see you as part of our CPU family. You are important to us. The success for your family and your child to be online is important to us as well. So communication, please, please, please communicate with us. Mr. Winterhoff shared the email that we have available right now. So if you have additional questions, and that's all we have for you tonight.
All right,
so
thank you.
Goodbye, and we will chat with everyone later.